I'm Mars, but you can call me Mars, and today I wanted to look at the murders in Danganronpa and see, would these killers be able to win without plot armor? I thought with my knowledge as a forensic student studying both criminology and science that I could give a more unique perspective. Even though these guys have no access to any forensics tools, which would have solved the murders so much quicker, you just fingerprint the knives, I think I could still analyze these in context of what the characters have access to. By doing a breakdown of each case, so obviously major spoiler warning for all three main games, I'll be revealing each culprit and each victim. I'll be using a 1 through 10 system, with 1 through 3 being there's no way they get away with it, 4 through 6 is a chance to get away with it, think a good plan but there's some issues with it, and then 7 through 10 is the plot armor step in. I'll also be giving a score from my forensics view, but that won't be the main overall score, I'll be combining them. I'll also not be doing chapters where there's not a killer like the 6th class trials and kind of the 5th one in the first game. With that out of the way, let's get started. The first murder to start it all. So some major facts about this case are, the victim, Sayaka Mizono, was killed in the protagonist, Makoto's room after asking to swap because she was scared. Of course, her intent was to kill someone and pin it on Makoto, which honestly wasn't a bad idea. Before getting to the actual case, I'll give Sayaka a solid 4 out of 10 on her murder plan. I think with what she knew about the game, it was a solid plan. Makoto was not likely to tell on her and she'd be more believed than him, but I think if everyone knew that all the innocent people would be killed for getting it wrong, Makoto would definitely tell on her. And also, Hina spotted her grabbing the knife, which would have been super suspicious. Sayaka, I score a 3 out of 10 from forensic standpoint. The note she sent to Leon would definitely been used as evidence, and even if she didn't sign it, you can just analyze the handwriting and match it to hers. You can also fingerprint the knife. Also, her fibers would be all over the crime scene, but she does have the excuse of being friends with Makoto, so it wouldn't be that weird that her hair was in his room, because she had been in there before. But her DNA will be all over the crime. Overall, I give her a 4 out of 10. Anyways, Sayaka was killed with a knife that she retrieved herself in the bathroom. The bathroom had a broken frame so it wouldn't be open easily, so Leon had to break it in order to kill Sayaka. After being stabbed, she wrote the numbers 11037 on the wall behind her, and Leon disposed of his bloody clothes in the trash room.
It becomes the letters L-E-O-N. L-E-O-N. Or more accurately, Leon.
The issue with that is that the room was locked and he had to throw his clothes from a great distance, as well as turn on the trash by throwing Hero's crystal ball. Do I think Leon gets away with this? No. There was so much evidence against him. He was the only one to use his toolkit, having used it to break down the bathroom door, the only one who's physically able to throw the crystal ball in the clothes, and most importantly, 11037, flip it upside down, it says Leon. His name is at the crime scene. I give him a solid 1 out of 10. He tried. He disposed of the evidence, he gets a point for being able to do that, but there's just no way he wins this. From a forensic standpoint, I'd score him a 4 out of 10. I give him points for removing his hair from the crime scene. That's actually very smart. I don't give him the other points because his fingerprints are most likely all over the scene. He also did try to burn his shirt, which is smarter than just washing it, so I do give him 4 points. Overall, he averages to a 2 out of 10. Another important thing to remember about this is everyone is just like a normal high schooler. Yeah, sure, they're ultimate, but what's the ultimate swimmer supposed to do to solve a murder? Kyoko hard carries this game because she's the only one that knows what she's doing, besides Byakuya, who just reads a lot and had a rough upbringing to say the least. Second case is a little more difficult. In every game, of course, the difficulty goes up as you solve more and more cases, however this one isn't that bad. The key evidence of this one is the bloodlust written in blood as well as the victim being suspended. These both match the serial killer Genocide Jack. More evidence is the carpet and the posters in the boys and girls locker room being switched. Chihiro was suspended with an extension cord from the library, and Toko's been acting weird the entire case. Could Mondo win this? No, I don't think so. It is harder to figure out that the culprit is Mondo just because Byakuya makes everything harder by framing Toko, but it's pretty easy to figure out that Toko is not the killer. The attention then switches to Byakuya, who's harder to prove is not the killer, mainly because he's just a weirdo. However, with Kyoko there, Mondo stood no chance. His little slip up with the blue tracksuit, as well as Kyoko noticing he knew Chihiro was a boy, makes him the prime suspect. Byakuya, I score a 0 out of 10. I love him, he's one of my favorite characters, but what was his goal here? I guess expose Toko, but it was so easy to prove it wasn't Toko. He's weird for this one, and it was very obviously him. Even ignoring how he would get his fingerprints all over it, he used the library extension cord that only he used, knew details about the case no one else did, and was just the most suspicious guy there. I give Mondo a solid 4 out of 10. I think he was playing it super cool during the trial, especially with what Byakuya did, and blended it pretty well into his tracksuit mistake. I also think with no Kyoko there, he could have won. I think Byakuya knowing he was the killer does nothing because Byakuya broke everyone's trust by messing with the body. I think his only chance was if Kyoko didn't exist since she's a little overpowered. I'm unsure if he'd be okay with winning though. He took his loss very well and truly cared for everyone, so I'm not confident thinking he would just let himself win and everyone else die. From a forensic standpoint, this scene is all messed up. Byakuya's prints are all over the crime, which would make it harder to prove Mondo's the culprit. I think he scores pretty high just based off of that. Mondo's fingerprints will be all over the dumbbell he used, as well as you can make an argument as to why are his fibers in the girls' locker room. Even though he came in when everyone discovered the body, that's a weak argument. Honestly, his fingerprints on the dumbbell would be the main evidence, and there wouldn't be really anything else that linked Mondo to the crime. A solid 5 out of 10, giving him an overall score of 4 out of 10. The third trial is always interesting because there's a double murder, and that honestly puts you at risk because you leave so much more evidence. This one is super complicated, so let's just go over the main pieces of evidence. There's the fact that Celeste was attacked with Justice Hammer number 1, a picture of Hifumi being dragged off by Robo-Justice, Hifumi being attacked and then killed later in the nurse's office, and both Hifumi and Taka's body moving to the art room storage space. There's also the cart and tarp that were likely used to move the body, piece of paper Taka had that Hifumi had the other parts to, Hiro being in the Robo-Justice costume and the plans being in his room, and finally, Hifumi being magically healed enough to know to say Yasuhiro before dying. With all this evidence, I don't think Celeste gets away with it. I think the plan was too dependent on only her and Hifumi seeing Robo-Justice, and then when everyone worked out that Hiro couldn't have moved the bodies, and it couldn't have been him who killed, she's the only one who it could have been. Her choice of person to frame was perfect. I also think her plan was really good, she just had a few minor mistakes that really dragged her down. There's also the fact that Makoto is naturally suspicious of her name. Day 1, he asks what her real name is, and so they're trying to figure out whose last name could be Yasuhiro, so of course he picks her. I think if she figured out a way to make the Robo-Justice costume be seen by more people before killing Hifumi, she might have been able to get away with it. But of course, Kyoko's there, so I wouldn't even try. I give Celeste a 7 out of 10. I do think her plan was really good, but with Kyoko there, she's never winning. I score her higher on forensics. The handwriting analysis alone proves that it was not Hiro who drew the plans for the Robo-Justice costume. Also, if you tested the blood on Hifumi when he first died, you'd find out that that's not his pretty easily. She did, however, wipe down the hammer that killed Hifumi, meaning her prints would not be on it as well as his blood. But if you used luminol light, you'd be able to tell that the hammer was the murder weapon. She was smart in having Hifumi kill Taka, as his prints would be all over that hammer and she'd be in the clear, but her downfall would be non-forensics areas. I don't remember if they ever said who drew the plans for Robo-Justice suit, Hifumi or Celeste, but if it were Celeste, I'd score her lower. I give her an 8 out of 10 on forensics, keeping her at a 7 out of 10 overall. Hifumi didn't really plan anything here, so he doesn't get a score. Case 4 is unique because it has no real culprit. Instead, I'll be doing rapid fire of Hina, Toko, and Hiro's plans. The evidence is the glass of 2 broken bottles, Toko's name written in blood on the magazine, Sakura having blood from the mouth as well as being hit twice, a sweets wrapper connected to Hiro meeting Sakura, the protein smoothie, and the footprints by the poison. I give Hiro a 1 out of 10. He wrote Toko's name, and that was really it. I think it would have been really easy to work out that it was not Toko who killed and connect Hiro to the crime. Forensics wise, I'm sticking with a 1 out of 10. Fingerprints everywhere. Glass bottle shards on the floor. He used his hand to write the blood. Awful. Toko gets a 2 out of 10 because she at least tried to hide evidence, but it was really easy to connect her to hiding in the locker. She also gets a 2 out of 10 on forensics. We literally found her handprint in there as well as the glass bottle she broke. DNA is everywhere. I mean, we all knew these two would not be the killers, folded under no pressure. Hina, I actually give a 6 out of 10. She really tried her best and convinced Byakuya, but he doesn't really understand friendship, so grading her based off of her goal to make everyone think the killer is her, she gets an 8 out of 10 on forensics. Her fingerprints are all over the drink that killed Sakura, shoe prints by the poisons, and all over the protein and poison bottles used. I think her plan was pretty good for what she was given. Pretending you're the killer just to take everyone down isn't super easy. She had a good plan switching the poison and protein to make it seem like she gave Sakura poison and pretended it was protein. But you're never getting away with anything when Kyoko's there, so I'm gonna give her a 7 out of 10. Trial 5, I'm not even gonna count. There was no solving this one, it was rigged from the start. Everyone knew something was up. She tried to pin it on Kyoko, but Makoto would not turn on Kyoko, and the rest of the cast would not turn on Makoto. Basically, if you want to get away with murder and trigger Happy Havoc, you need to first plan your murder, and then get Kyoko out of the way. Goodbye Despair has vastly different trials. They're all planned, and this is the only game without an ultimate detective. The first trial I'll rate both Nagito and Terateru's attempts. The main evidence for Nagito's plan is the glowing paint on the knife under the table, the note to Byakuya saying someone would die that night, the irons being on to cause the power surge, and the power cord to the lamp leading to the table. give Nagito a solid 5 out of 10, and I know people are gonna jump me for this one, but this plan was never supposed to be a winning one. Nagito's goal was to be the stepping stone for everyone else's hope, so I don't think he made it as complicated as it could have been. Nagito's found out because he's the only person to have the opportunity to place the knife, as well as it being the closest to the power cord. It was a good plan, which is why I'm giving it the 5. It's hard to get away with murder when everybody's in the room and no one suspected him for a really long time. I can't score him higher because it was pretty simple to work out the only person who could have done it was. Forensics-wise, he gets a 2 out of 10. Fingerprints everywhere. Handwriting analysis would prove that he wrote the note, and he gets found so easily. He gets an overall score of 3 out of 10, but don't worry Nagito fans, his second plan scores higher. Next is Teruteru's plan. Teruteru was caught due to a couple things. Gundam dropping his Hellhound earring and finding a way under the floorboards could not have been predicted, so his plan of being under the floor was actually pretty smart. No one figured it out, and they might not have if not for the 4 Dark Devas. Teruteru calling out from under the floor and not being there when the lights turned on was somewhat smart. It puts him near the body, but also where was he? He vanished when the lights turned on, which was suspicious. I think even if Gundam doesn't find a way under the floorboards, Teruteru's still caught. Everyone else had an alibi. Chiaki and Fuyuhiko were outside, Peko was indisposed, and everyone else was in the dining room. Teruteru is the only one who could have done it and had the chance to slip under the floorboards. I give him a solid 6 out of 10. I think with what time he was given, he did really well. The plan was really smart and it used Nagito's murder plan against him. Like I said earlier, there's no way he gets away with it because he's just the only person without an alibi, but he makes a good effort. He scores above Nagito's plan just because Nagito's was much simpler to figure out. Forensics-wise, I score him a 6 out of 10 as well. People did not find the murder weapon for a while, so no prints on it. He was also under the floorboard and blocked any blood from getting on him, so he has no DNA on him. Forensics-wise, unless you find the murder weapon, there's really nothing that links him. Anything you can find to link him to being in the building, but he was there all day. Teruteru gets an overall score of 6 out of 10. Trial 2 is unique because the goal of it is to convict Peko so that Fuyuhiko lives. Going into the examination with this in mind, the score changes. I will score Peko based off this plan and Fuyuhiko based off of Peko not being caught because he knew he didn't view Peko as just a tool, so it would never work. A lot of this trial relies on the motive, so let's just skip by the whole thing and summarize it. Mikan, Hiyoko, Mahiru, Ibuki, and a friend who's not in the game, they find a body of Fuyuhiko's sister, and it turns out Mahiru's friend is the one who killed her because she bullied Mahiru. Mahiru burns photo evidence of this crime if Fuyuhiko finds out and kills Mahiru's friend. Now, on to the actual case. The main evidence is a gummy that Hiyoko eats being in the closet, footprints from Hiyoko running away from the crime scene, empty water bottles in the trash can, Mahiru's body blocking one of the doors out, letters to Mahiru and Hiyoko from each other forged by the killer, the mask of a serial killer, and photos proving the Twilight Murder Syndrome game was actually real. Based on this, the plan wasn't actually that bad. Figuring out how Peko and Fuyuhiko got out of the beach house was pretty difficult to work out, as well as Hiyoko leaving direct evidence that she was there when the body was. If not for the gummy, as well as Hiyoko having no blood on her, I think Hiyoko could get voted here. At least by some of the dumber contestants. After that, the plan to make it look like Peko was pretty smart. Her pretending to be a serial killer was smart, as only Sonia knew anything about that and everyone else just believed her. If Fuyuhiko truly viewed her as a tool, I think he could have won that easily. I score Peko a 10 out of 10. You might be like, how could you score her that high? But she accomplished her plan. It went exactly how she wanted. Peko wanted everyone to vote for her so Fuyuhiko could escape the island. Forensics-wise, she would also get a 9 out of 10. Her fingerprints are on the bat, which is what she would want to happen. I also can't remember if it's confirmed she wrote the notes to Mahiru and Hiyoko, but either way, she could say she worked with Fuyuhiko and he wrote notes to her. If it gets traced back to her, I rounded her out with a 10 out of 10. She did what she meant to do. Fuyuhiko is a different story. His plan gets a 0 out of 10. He knew the entire time he cared for Peko more than a tool, defends her the whole trial, and has a breakdown when she's going to die. Forensics-wise, he gets a 0 out of 10 as well. I mean, come on, everything links to him and Peko, and he knew he cared for her. Love the guy, he gets a 0. The third trial is a little confusing because I feel like it leaves some questions about the case unanswered, and there's a lot of evidence to get through. The key evidence here is the key to Hiyoko's room on her, blood on Ibuki's feet, scrap of paper and a black curtain, candle, the video Hajime watched, glue, and a couple accounts from students. Also, the hemp bag. I think Mikan's original plan was really good. Pretending to be Ibuki and filming the death was honestly genius. I think if Hiyoko didn't walk in, Mikan could have gotten away with it. She had an alibi for the time around Ibuki's death, and it could have been pinned as someone telling Ibuki to do it herself because she had the gullible disease. Hiyoko walking in on the murder changed the plan, but Mikan was really smart with it. Hiding the body in such an obvious place was insane, but it worked. And also planning it to look like she was copying the Motive movie? Very smart. Mikan's little slip up with the camera angles wasn't the only thing pointing that the crime was her though. Once they figured out the video was faked, it could only have been her, as well as once they found out Ibuki was strangled, there was no way Mikan mistook that for self-inflicted damage. I think Hiyoko walking in really did Mikan in. I think there's a good chance that everyone figured it out without that, but Hiyoko ruined that plan. Honestly, if she had killed Nagito and not Hiyoko, I think Mikan stands a better chance. Even having just almost died, Nagito helped carry this trial as well. I rate Mikan a 7 out of 10. Her plan was really good, but I think she didn't clean up the fake scene well enough as well as clean the real scene enough. Given more time and no Hiyoko, I think she stands a really good chance. From a forensic standpoint, I think her score dips a little. Post-mortem examination would prove Ibuki was strangled, which would discredit Mikan, as well as fingerprint evidence all over the items in the music venue. There was a smudge of blood on the music venue floor, which we could examine with luminol light to trace back where it came from, which helps prove Hiyoko was killed first. I give her a 5 out of 10 on forensics. We never found the weapon used to kill Hiyoko, so no evidence there, and Mikan was in constant contact with Ibuki, so her fibers being transferred to Ibuki wouldn't have been weird. Would be weird with Hiyoko though. I think she cleaned up decently well, especially given the lack of tools. I give Mikan an overall 6 out of 10. I actually hate the fourth trial, not because it's difficult, but because Gundam's my favorite character in Danganronpa. I absolutely love him. Okay, enough glaze. His plan is one of the smartest I've ever seen from a non-antagonist character. I think without Fuyuhiko being awake and Gundam have not been able to go back to his room, he stands a really good chance of winning. If only he had a different room. Anyways, the main piece of evidence are the metal wire tied around Nekomaru's leg, the sleep mode button, the fallen pillar, the rumbling noise everyone heard, the clock's time being off, the broken door handle, and Nekomaru's alarm clock. I score Gundam a 10 out of 10, and yes, maybe I'm biased, but let's think about this. Sure, they figured out how Gundam did the crime, but the only thing linking him to it was the fact that the other people in the deluxe rooms couldn't hear the noise, and Gundam did. There's nothing else that connects him to it. Only once you figure out that it was him can you piece together the fact that his 4 Dark Devas helped in the crime, and that he beat the final dead room. I think because of who he is as a person, he made it easier to prove that it was him. He wanted everyone to fight for their lives, so he would never just give up. But I don't think he would ever just let himself win like that. This is turning into Gundam glaze, but like listen, he got caught because he's an honorable man, and when accused of sneaking up on Nekomaru, he would not stand for that slander. He is a top tier character. Fun fact, I watched a playthrough of a Danganronpa fan game, Danganronpa Another, first and second game, and my favorite character died in the exact same way as Gundam. Starvation motive, battle to the death. Anyways, forensics-wise, he's also pretty high up. He wears partial gloves, so he would have less fingerprints if he tried, and because Nekomaru's a robot, there's less biological evidence of Gundam being there. The method of murder also makes it harder to figure out who it is. You could potentially lift prints from the wire he tied to the door handle, but trying to print anything else would be difficult because everyone had been in those areas. You can't prove it was him who pushed the sleep button because it was a Dark Deva. No fingerprints from them. Yes, I will glaze him again with a 10 out of 10, but for someone who battled a robot, he got away with either no or minimal injuries and very little proof he was there. Now, it's time for Nagito's second plan. Honestly, how did they figure this one out? The main evidence is all the wounds he had, the burned rope, stabbed Monokuma plushie, the fake bombs, gas mask, and gloves found in Nagito's room, and the poison found in his room. This plan is insane. The fact that he wouldn't even know who his killer was? Oh my gosh. It was decently easy to work out that he had set up a majority himself, but once you figure out he did that, you really can't figure out who actually killed. The real murder was random. Someone chose the fire grenade to poison him without even knowing. I'd score him a 10 out of 10 because he got his goal. His luck and his plan made it so the traitor killed him. And if Chiaki didn't confess, I don't think anyone figures it out and just votes at random. This was unsolvable, just as he planned, and Chiaki confessing was the only way everyone won. Sure, we figured it out a little bit, but I mean, this was unsolvable. From a forensics angle, I'd also think it's perfect. Sure, you'd be able to figure out he did everything himself, blood spatter as well as fingerprints would prove that, but you'd still have the issue of figuring out who threw the poison. You could test the fire grenades, but how do you find out who threw that one? It's a very small chance to figure it out. And also, since Chiaki's an AI, does she have fingerprints? Anyways, a solid 10 out of 10 for Nagito. Now we're on to V3. Honestly, out of all the games, this one has the most planned murders and has so much more evidence in each case. Starting with the first case, I'll do Kaede first. The major evidence was the camera that she and Shuichi set up, the moving bookcase, the dust on the card reader, the stacked books, the vent, and all the pictures. Honestly, there's no way Kaede is getting away with this one, even though she didn't actually do it. The actual culprit had an airtight alibi because no one knew about the passages. Her plan was solid for what she wanted to do, but left so much evidence it was her. She should have taken the first blood perk, man. Miu having an aerial view of the room really just sealed her fate. Everyone else had an alibi and couldn't have killed Rantaro, and only she and Shuichi knew about the camera placement to turn the flash on. I score her a 3 out of 10. I feel bad. She tried her best, but the plan was never to get away with murder. It was just to kill the mastermind. Forensics-wise, she's actually in the clear. The fingerprints on the shot put ball would not have matched her, it would match Tsumugi. So it actually would have helped her. There's not much else that would be examined by the forensics here. Everyone was in the library at points and came in contact with Rantaro. Forensics would just prove her innocence. I score her a 10 out of 10 on forensics just because nothing else could link her. Which means Tsumugi gets a 0 out of 10 on forensics because it links her and her alone. For the plan, she gets a 10 out of 10 because, hey, she has an unfair advantage. But unlike Junko in Chapter 5, Kaede actually thought she did it. This leaves both of them with an average of 5 out of 10. Next is Kurumi, which might I say is one of the most ridiculous cases ever. How did she think of this? Anyways, the major evidence is the scratched handcuffs, square glass panel, insect meet and greet alibi, black piece of fabric in the pool, tennis net cable, Himiko's magic trick, and a couple alibis. Realistically, she should have won this. Who thinks of using an inner tube and a ropeway to bring the body from his room to the gym, and then hover outside the gym so that the alarms wouldn't go off? The only evidence linking Kurumi was the glove piece in the pool and the fact that everyone was kidnapped by Gonta or had another alibi. I score Kurumi a 10 out of 10 because come on, her plan was so good. The reason this trial was so hard is at the start Himiko refusing just to tell anyone her trick. And after you figure that out, the rest is basically impossible to solve logically. She's caught because everyone has an alibi besides her. For forensics, she gets a 9 out of 10. I mean, she's wearing gloves, no prints on anything, plus the body's eaten with piranhas, so no evidence there, and the one evidence, the black fabric in the pool, is waterlogged, but you'd still be able to analyze the fibers and get a match, so that's the only thing dragging her down. Overall, I'll still give her the 10 out of 10 because it was an insanely smart plan, and in my opinion, top 3 most difficult culprits to catch. She's a bit like Gundam. Had Kokichi not done the insect meet and greet, it would have been nearly impossible to catch her. Trial 3 is another. The second murder makes your perfect plan flawed. Honestly, had Kyo only murdered Angie, I feel like he stands a higher chance of getting away with it. And same with just killing Tenko. He got greedy and that's what caught him. The main evidence in Angie's case is her head wound, the duct tape that had her hair on it, the katana stabbed into the effigy, and the locked room. Tenko's case has the loose floorboard, loud sound during the seance, blood-stained white sheet, magic circle, sickle under the floor, and dried blood under the floor. Angie's case is also kinda ridiculous. What do you mean he stabbed the effigy and spun it so the katana would slide the lock? How does that even happen? It's genius. If he had removed the bloody duct tape, there's almost no way to solve that murder. Tenko's kill is also insane. What do you mean he used a seesaw trap, jumps on a floorboard, and then that stabs Tenko into the sickle that he placed within the 2 seconds he was placing the tarp above the cage? Logically, there's no way you can solve this one. Who thinks of this? I guess Shuichi does, and Kokichi too. In the game, they admit had Himiko chosen any other room and Kyo removed the bloody duct tape, it would have been impossible, so I score this a 9 out of 10. The duct tape is his bad, but how could he have known Himiko would choose the one room they would catch him? From a forensics view, he's also in the clear. He's another character that wears gloves, so lack of DNA from that. The blood would have been tested and found to be Angie's, so that it was under the seance room, and with proper post-mortem techniques, they would have been able to tell an accurate time of death for Angie and that her body had been moved. I score Kyo a 7 out of 10 for forensics because they would catch him for at least the Angie murder, which is the more important one. Overall, I'll give Kyo an 8 out of 10, which feels a little low for how insane this plot was. It was literally a seesaw murder trap. Who thinks of that? I will go over Miyu's plan since it was discussed in the game. Miyu planned to put everyone in the game and then kill Kokichi because she could paralyze his avatar, meaning he could not fight back. She also coded her character to be an object so she could pass through the wall and appear on the side of the river that she should not be able to get to. She put poison on Kokichi's seat before logging into the game, and logged Kaito out early so it looked like he poisoned Kokichi. Honestly, this plan was insanely smart and stupid at the same time. It would have been easy for Shuichi to work out that Kokichi was not poisoned, just as he does in the game, although he does get a lot of help in this chapter from Kokichi. Once working out that the kill was in the game, Miyu literally asked Kokichi to meet her alone, so who would suspect number 1 be? Miyu. Tsumugi also saw Miyu walk by on her way to meet Kokichi. Yeah, she gets caught really easily. 5 out of 10 for how smart the plan is, but -5 for how dumb it is. Forensics-wise, there's not much to say here. Everything happens in the video game, so there's no fingerprints, nothing to be analyzed. except the poison bottle, which would have her fingerprints on it. But forensics also includes computers. I'm sure as soon as you analyze the computer she used to alter the game, you discover all the little things she does that points to her being the only one who could have killed Kokichi. I'd give her a 4 out of 10 for forensics. The computer would tell everything, but at least there's no DNA or fibers. I round her out with a 5 out of 10 plot. Now for Kokichi's plan with Gonta. It's very smart. The major evidence for this is all the stuff Miu programmed and did in her plan, along with the toilet paper found on the roof, the lights near the chapel, an avatar user error, as well as the loud noise Shuichi and Tsumugi heard. I think Kokichi's plan is genius. Gonta may be less so. The toilet paper is a crazy weapon. No one thought that this could be a weapon until realizing everything is indestructible. Top 5, maybe even top 3 most embarrassing Danganronpa deaths in my opinion. Sliding her body off the roof was also smart as well because using the toilet paper to climb down, come on. I think this plan deserves an 8 out of 10. I'm docking 2 points because Kokichi knew the entire thing and he'd never just let himself die, as well as the fact that Gonta almost got caught and couldn't fully dispose of the evidence. Forensics wise, this is a 10 out of 10. The only thing linking Gonta and is Kokichi's word and the fact that everyone else has an alibi. There's nothing forensics wise. I scored a 10 out of 10, giving Kokichi and Gonta a 9 out of 10. And now, time for the final case. This one's so insane because you don't even know the victim for most of the case. The main evidence is the hydraulic press controls and safety feature, Kaito's coat in the press, the swipe bloodstain, crossbow, empty bottle, electro bomb, electro hammer, poison, Kokichi's clothes, and the murder video. Fun fact, I actually hate this case, my least favorite in the game. It makes me really sad. Let's skim by it so I don't have to talk about it very much. Evidence-wise, genius. Even the mastermind didn't know who the victim was. There was so much proof it was Kokichi, and then there was so much proof it was Kaito. This is truly the most masterful case, one where even the mastermind has no clue. I have to give it a 10 out of 10. The fact that Kokichi did all this while dying from poison too, he is insane. With forensics, it would have been way easier to solve. You can test the blood from the press with Kokichi's DNA and easily figure out he's the victim. The lack of a body makes it so you can't determine the cause of death, so you wouldn't be able to tell if the poison got him first. Forensics would just kill the entire point of the case though, so I feel bad, but I have to give it a 0 out of 10 for forensics. To be fair, this would give Kokichi a 5 out of 10 overall, even though he deserves a 10 out of 10 for this plan. Now, I've spent this entire time hating on people for getting caught. I should back up my words with my own method to win the killing game. How do you win? Well, first of all, don't kill. Statistically, it never goes well for anyone, and I would rather be killed than be executed. But if I had to kill, here's how I would do it. I would do it in a later chapter, maybe around the middle. That way there's less people around to catch you, but still enough that you can pin the crime on other people. If you kill earlier on, go for someone smaller and weaker than you. So think Chihiro, Hiyoko, and Himiko. I would say Kokichi, but that guy always has a trick up his sleeve. He would get me. Why go for someone smaller? Well, earlier chapters have less weapons unlocked, so unless you are stronger than most of the students, go for someone you can easily overpower. I honestly think I'm only taller than Chihiro and Ryoma would beat me up. If you kill in later chapters, Chapter 4, Poison's unlocked. Once poison is unlocked, that is the best weapon. There's no proof it was you if you use gloves, which you should always use when handling poison. Safety first, guys. And you can target anyone. The main targets should be the smartest people there. Kyoko, Nagito, and Shuichi should be the main targets, with the secondary being Byakuya, Hajime, and Kokichi. You should also do this around nighttime. People are less likely to have an alibi, and you can't get stuck with the process of elimination vote. The smartest method is a kill where you don't have to be there. Think Gundam's kill where he could be with someone while Nakamura dies, giving an alibi. If you somehow slip poison into someone's food, and then make sure you have an alibi, you're pretty good. Then you want to make sure that you don't slip up with anything. No blue tracksuits here. Keep yourself calm and composed, only talk in facts of the case that everyone knows. It's also smart to have at least one person to pin the crime on, but it can be hard to do that. Maybe figure out a way to have someone be alone during the crime so it just has to be them. That's the basics on what I would do, but honestly, I'd never kill anyone in Danganronpa. The execution is like 10 times more painful than being murdered, depending on who you are, so it's really not worth it to me. I would just never leave my room at night, ignore any notes telling me to go to a location in secret, and stick with 2 to 3 people during the day. Easy method to win. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you have any ideas on what you want me to talk about next, please let me know down in the comments. I'll see you next time. Goodbye!